Hey guys, tonight we're heading west. Not the glorious, sun-drenched west of Hollywood movies, but a different one, a place of dust, grit, and long, lonely horizons. We're exploring a strange and dangerous paradox of the American frontier. Why being considered too pretty wasn't a blessing but a constant, low-grade threat. It was a currency you never asked for, a lantern in a world full of moths, and a burden that was often heavier than any saddlebag. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support means the world. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see our quiet community stretching across the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. Let the modern world fall away, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step off the stagecoach, and the first thing that hits you isn't the heat, but the silence. It's a loud silence, thick with dust, and the weight of 100 pairs of eyes you can't see but can absolutely feel. The town is little more than a single street clawed from the unforgiving dirt. A saloon, a general store, a blacksmith's forge belching black smoke, and a dozen other low clapboard buildings leaning against each other for support. It smells of horse, hot metal, stale beer, and something vaguely like defeat. Your journey here took weeks of jolting wagon beds, questionable water, and a loneliness so profound it felt like a travelling companion. You came for a new start, a job as a seamstress, a promise from a distant cousin, a chance to be someone other than the person you were back east. You packed your few good dresses, your mother's locket, and a desperate, fragile hope. You did not, however, pack a strategy for this. The moment your boot touches the ground, the town seems to hold its breath. A man carrying a barrel stops mid-stride. Two prospectors leaning against a post slowly straighten up, their conversation dying on their lips. Even the dog sleeping in the shade lifts its head. You are an event, an unscheduled arrival, a splash of colour in a world of brown and grey. And it's not just because you're new, it's because of your face. You've always known it, of course. The way your hair catches the light, the symmetry of your features, the curve of your mouth that people have called everything from angelic to trouble. Back home it earned you compliments, maybe a few jealous glares from other girls, an extra dance at the Sunday social. It was a feature, like being tall or having a good singing voice. Here, it's something else entirely. It's a signal. You pull your bonnet down a little lower, clutching the handle of your worn carpet bag. You just want to find the boarding house, to close a door behind you, to be unseen. But there are no unseen places here. The street is a stage, and you've just walked into the spotlight. The men aren't hostile, not yet. They're curious. Their stares aren't just glances, they're assessments. They measure your worth, your status, your vulnerability, all in a single, lingering look. You can feel their thoughts like a physical touch. Who does she belong to? Is she married? Is she a mail-order bride? Or is she one of those? The questions hang in the air, unspoken but deafening. Every man who looks at you is doing a kind of grim arithmetic, calculating his chances, your price, or the trouble you might bring. A woman sweeping the porch of the general store pauses, her eyes narrowing. Her gaze is different. It's not desire, it's appraisal. She sees you not as an opportunity, but as a complication. A new piece on a very small, very volatile chessboard. Her look says, "You'll learn." You ask a man for directions to the boarding house. He's older, with a beard stained by tobacco, but his eyes light up with a startling youthfulness as he answers. He calls you ma'am, but the word feels heavier than it should. He holds your gaze a second too long, his smile a little too wide. You thank him and walk away, feeling the heat of his stare on your back long after you've turned the corner. This is your welcome. Not a handshake, not a greeting, but 100 silent assumptions projected onto you because of the way the light hits your cheekbones. You came here seeking freedom, but you've already been placed in a cage built of other people's desires. You haven't spoken a full sentence. You haven't done a single thing, but your face has already told a story that you have no control over. And you have a sinking feeling that you're going to spend the rest of your time here trying to convince everyone it's the wrong one. You find the boarding house. It's cleaner than you expected, run by a widow with a face like a clenched fist and eyes that miss nothing. She takes your money, shows you to a room no bigger than a closet, and gives you a single weary piece of advice. Keep to yourself, girl. It's quieter that way. You try to follow her advice. You really do. But in a town this small, keeping to yourself is impossible. Your existence is public property. The simple act of walking to the well for water becomes a performance. You feel the miners stop their haggling to watch you. You hear the saloon doors swing open, and the laughter inside dip for a moment as you pass. You learn to walk with your eyes fixed on the ground, your shoulders hunched, trying to make yourself smaller, plainer, less noticeable. It doesn't work. Your beauty isn't a shield, it's a magnet. It draws attention you don't want and speculation you can't afford. If you smile at the shopkeeper, you're a flirt. If you don't, you're stuck up. If your dress is clean, you're putting on airs. If it's dusty, you're letting yourself go. There is no right answer. Every choice you make is interpreted through the lens of your appearance. You take your sewing work to a small corner of the boarding house parlour. You focus on your stitches, the tiny, perfect movements of the needle through cloth. But you can feel the other boarders watching you. A young cattle hand who stammers when he tries to speak to you. An old prospector who just sits and stares, his eyes watery with some long-lost memory. A travelling salesman who offers you a piece of licorice with a greasy smile that makes your skin crawl. They're not all dangerous. Most are just lonely men in a world starved of softness. But their attention feels like a constant, low-grade hum of pressure. You are a reminder of what they don't have. A wife, a home, a gentle touch. And so they project their hopes, their frustrations, and their crude fantasies onto you. You cease to be a person and become a symbol. Here's a fringe fact for you. In the diaries and letters of many frontier women, they rarely spoke of grand dangers like outlaw raids or gunfights. What they wrote about most was the relentless, suffocating loneliness and the psychological burden of being one of the only women in a settlement of 100 men. They described the feeling of being perpetually on display, a rare bird in a cage, admired but never truly free. You begin to change your habits. You fetch your water at dawn when the street is empty and the shadows are long. You buy your groceries in a single hurried trip, your shopping list clutched in your hand so you don't have to linger. You avoid the main street after dusk, when the saloons spill their drunken patrons into the night like a foul tide. But the gaze follows you. One afternoon, you're mending a tear in your dress by the window in your small room. You look up and see a man standing across the street, just watching your window. He's not doing anything threatening. He's just there. He sees you notice him, and he doesn't look away. He gives a slow nod, as if you're sharing a secret. You quickly pull the thin curtain closed, your heart hammering. How long has he been there? Who is he? The questions are like stones in your stomach. You start to feel like a hunted thing. Not by a predator who wants to kill you, but by something far more complex. The collective imagination of a town full of bored, lonely men. They invent a life for you. They whisper stories. Saw her talking to the blacksmith. Wonder what that was about. Heard she got a letter from back east. Must be a secret lover. She never smiles. Must be hiding a dark past. You realize that your face, the thing that's supposed to be yours alone, has been co-opted. It has become a canvas onto which they paint their own narratives. And you, the actual person behind the face, are becoming irrelevant. The pretty girl in the boarding house isn't you anymore. She's a character in a story they're all telling each other. You see it in the way the other women in town treat you. The boarding house owner, Mrs. Gable, is stern but fair, yet she watches you with a kind of pitying dread, as if you're a lit fuse and she's just waiting for the explosion. The few other respectable women, the blacksmith's wife, the preacher's daughter, offer you polite, brittle smiles. You are a threat to their own fragile standing. Your presence reminds their husbands that there are other, perhaps prettier women in the world, so they keep their distance, isolating you further. You're too pretty to be one of them, but you're desperate not to become one of them, the painted ladies in the saloon. You are trapped in a social no man's land. One night, you can't sleep. The air in your room feels thick and used. You stare at the ceiling and feel the weight of all those eyes, all those assumptions. You wonder if it's possible to become so used to being watched that you forget what it feels like to be alone. The quiet hum of being an object of speculation is the new silence. And in that silence, you start to wonder if the widow was right. Maybe the only way to survive here is to become so quiet, so still, that they eventually forget you exist. But you look at your own reflection in the small, cracked mirror on your wall, and you know they never will. There are two kinds of buildings in this town that never seem to sleep: the church and the saloon. And you get the distinct feeling that one exists primarily because of the other. The church is a small, whitewashed building at the edge of town, promising salvation on Sundays. The saloon, however, sits right in the heart of the street, promising oblivion every single night. It's loud, it's brightly lit, and its swinging doors seem to exhale a constant sigh of whiskey, sawdust, and regret. You have no reason to ever go inside. Your life is here, in the quiet corners of the boarding house, at the general store, by the well. The saloon is another world, a world of men. But that world doesn't stay behind its doors. It spills out, and its attention is drawn to you like a compass needle to true north. Every time you walk past, the music, a tinny, out-of-tune piano, seems to falter. The roar of laughter subsides for a beat. The doors swing open, and a man will stumble out, blinking in the daylight, his eyes finding you instantly. He might tip his hat. He might grin a yellow-toothed grin. He might just stare, his thoughts loud and unfiltered. You learn to time your walks to avoid the peak hours, but it's no use. The saloon is the town's gravity, and you are an object caught in its orbit. One evening, a message arrives for you. A young boy, barely 10, shoves a crumpled note into your hand and runs off before you can ask who sent it. The handwriting is a clumsy scrawl. It's an invitation. Not a polite one, more of a summons. A man named Blackett, a cattle baron with a reputation for getting what he wants, has heard about the new flower in town and requests your presence at the saloon for a drink. My treat, the note says. Your blood runs cold. It's not a question, it's a test. If you go, you're signaling that you're available, that you're the kind of woman who enters a saloon, and you'll be marked as such forever. If you refuse, you risk offending a powerful man in a town where power is the only law that matters. You see the dilemma laid out before you, a perfect, elegant trap. You send no reply. You lock your door, push a chair against it, and spend the night listening to every footstep in the hall, every shout from the street. The piano from the saloon sounds louder tonight, almost mocking. The next day, the atmosphere has shifted. The stares are no longer just curious. They're questioning, edged with suspicion. You ignored Blackett. The whole town knows it. Now they're all waiting to see what happens next. A quirky fact about the Old West. The saloon was a deeply male space, but it wasn't just for drinking. It was the town hall, the bank, the post office, and the courtroom, all rolled into one. Deals were made, claims were fought over, and reputations were forged and shattered over a poker table. A woman entering that space, unless she was employed there, was making a powerful and dangerous statement. She was stepping out of the domestic sphere and into the chaotic, violent world of men. You try to go about your day. You need thread from the general store. As you step inside, the usual small group of men loitering by the stove goes quiet. The store owner, a man who had previously been kind to you, suddenly can't quite meet your eyes. He serves you quickly, his movements stiff. You feel like you've been branded with a crime you didn't commit. As you leave, one of the men speaks, his voice low and syrupy. "Too good for a drink with Mr. Blackett, are we?" You don't answer. You walk faster, your face burning. His laughter follows you down the street. It's a cruel, knowing sound. The danger of the saloon isn't just about what happens inside it. It's about the culture. It represents a culture of entitlement, where a woman's refusal is seen not as a right, but as an insult. A man like Blackett isn't used to being told no, especially not by a woman with nothing to her name but a pretty face. Later that week, you learn what that can mean. Your work dries up. The few women who were giving you sewing jobs suddenly have no more mending to be done. The dresses are fine, they say. The curtains can wait. You know it's not true. You're being frozen out, subtly, quietly. An order has come down from on high, passed through whispers and sideways glances. Blackett has been displeased. You're running out of money. The widow at the boarding house looks at you with pity, but you know she can't let you stay for free. The walls are closing in. One night, there's a knock on your door. It's not the cattle hand or the prospector. It's one of the women who works at the saloon. They call them soiled doves, or dance hall girls. She's older than you, with eyes that look like they've seen too much and makeup that doesn't quite hide the exhaustion. "Heard you were in a spot," she says, not unkindly. Blackett's a patient man, but not that patient. There's always work for a girl with a face like yours, you know. Honest work, she adds, though her smile is tired. Serving drinks, dancing, it pays. She's offering you a way out. An entry into the one place you've been desperately trying to avoid. She's offering you a job, but what you hear is a life sentence. You'd have money. You'd have a roof over your head. But you would belong to the saloon. You would become one of them. You thank her and tell her you'll think about it. But as she walks away, her brightly coloured dress a stark contrast to the grimy hallway, you feel a despair so profound it's like a physical weight. The saloon door has swung open for you, and you're starting to realise that in a town like this, some doors, once you walk through them, can never be closed again. You sit on your bed in the dark, and you can still hear the tinny piano, playing a song you don't know the name of, pulling you closer. You start to understand that your face isn't just a collection of features. Here, it's a form of currency. It's a commodity to be traded, leveraged, and bartered with, except you're not the one in control of the transactions. Everyone else is. You manage to scrape together a few more sewing jobs from a kind rancher's wife who lives outside town and doesn't care about local politics. It's enough to pay your rent, but just barely. Every coin you earn feels like a victory, a tiny piece of independence you've clawed back. But the offers keep coming, and they're rarely for sewing. A man stops you on the street. He's a land speculator, sharp-eyed, and dressed in a suit that looks out of place amidst the dust. He doesn't offer you a drink. He offers you a deal. He's opening a new hotel, he says. A respectable one. He needs a hostess, someone to greet guests, pour coffee, make the place feel civilized. A pretty face at the door is good for business, he tells you, his eyes scanning you as if he's measuring a plot of land. The pay is good, too good. And the offer comes with a small, furnished apartment at the back of the hotel. You know what he's really offering. It's not just a job, it's an arrangement. You would be his employee, yes, but you would also be his possession. Your presence, your beauty, would be part of the hotel's appeal, another asset for him to own. He would expect your gratitude to extend beyond the workday, into the quiet hours of the night. You politely decline. He smiles, a thin, cold smile. The offer stands, he says, for now. It's a constant, exhausting negotiation. Men don't court you, they make proposals. A miner who just struck a small vein of silver offers to set you up in your own little cabin. A shop owner suggests he could forget your debt at the store in exchange for companionship. A deputy sheriff hints that he could offer you protection from men like Blackett for a price that has nothing to do with money. Your beauty has made you valuable, but it has stripped you of your value as a person. You are a prize, a status symbol. The man who wins your favor, or buys it, isn't just getting a companion, he's getting a trophy to display to the rest of the town. Look what I have, his ownership would say. Look what you don't. You start to see this dynamic play out with the other women in town. There's Lily, one of the saloon girls. She's undeniably beautiful, with fiery red hair and a laugh that can cut through the thickest barroom smoke. She's the property of the saloon owner, a man named Croft. He buys her fine dresses, jewellery, but he also watches her with the possessive glare of a man guarding a gold claim. If another man looks at her too long, Croft is there, a hand on his gun, his smile gone. Lily's beauty is her livelihood, but it's also the bars of her gilded cage. She is the most admired woman in the saloon and the least free. You start to realise that refusing these offers is its own kind of danger. You're not just turning down a man, you're rejecting the town's entire economic and social system. In a world where everything and everyone has a price, your refusal to be bought is seen as an act of defiance. It makes you unpredictable. And in the tightly controlled ecosystem of a frontier town, unpredictability is terrifying. Here's a quirky, and rather grim, fact about the era. The term kept woman wasn't just a euphemism, it was a recognised social status. A man of means, a rancher, a banker, a railroad man might openly provide for a mistress. It was a way of displaying wealth and power. The woman received financial security, but she sacrificed her reputation and her autonomy. Her beauty was her contract, and breaking it could mean being cast out with nothing. You begin to feel like a piece of unclaimed property. Men are circling, making their bids, assessing your worth. Your refusal to play the game only makes them more determined. Your no isn't heard as a final answer, but as a negotiating tactic. They think you're holding out for a better offer. They can't comprehend that you simply want to be left alone. One day, you receive another gift. Not a note this time, but a package left on your doorstep. Inside is a beautiful silk shawl, deep blue and impossibly soft. There's no card. You know who it's from. Black it. It's not a gift. It's a claim. If you wear it, you're accepting his patronage. If you return it, you're issuing another direct insult. If you do nothing, you're just delaying the inevitable. You look at the shawl. It's the most beautiful thing you've ever touched. For a fleeting moment, you imagine the security it represents. A warm meal every night. A room that isn't freezing. An end to the constant worry about money. You could be safe. You could be kept. All you have to do is surrender. All you have to do is agree to be owned. You fold the shawl, place it back in the box, and push it under your bed. You don't know what to do with it. You can't accept it, but you're too afraid to reject it. So it stays there, a silent, silk-wrapped threat. A reminder that in this town, your face is a resource to be exploited, and your only choice is to decide who gets to hold the deed. The weight of that choice is suffocating. You didn't come here to be a commodity, but the laws of supply and demand are as real and as ruthless as the desert wind. And in this dusty, desperate place, a pretty face is a resource in very high demand. You'd think the safest place for you would be among the other respectable women of the town, the wives, mothers, and daughters who occupy the fragile sphere of domesticity. They run the church bake sales, they quilt in circles, they trade recipes for sourdough starter. They are the moral backbone of this chaotic settlement, and you want nothing more than to be accepted as one of them. But you're not, and your beauty is the reason why. To them, you are not a potential friend, you are a potential threat. You are a walking, breathing temptation for their husbands, brothers, and sons. They don't see a woman trying to make an honest living. They see a rival, a disruption to the delicate social order they have worked so hard to maintain. It starts with the whispers. You walk into the general store, and the quiet chatter between the blacksmith's wife and the preacher's daughter stops. They turn, offer you a smile that is as thin and sharp as a shard of glass, and then resume their conversation in hushed tones the moment you've passed. You can feel their words like little pinpricks on your skin. You try to join their sewing circle. You bring your own thread and needles, offer a shy smile, and sit on the edge of the group. The conversation is polite but strained. They ask you about your family back east, about your journey, but their questions are tinged with suspicion. They're not trying to know you, they're trying to place you. They're looking for the flaw, the crack in your respectable facade. When you mention you're unmarried, a chill descends upon the room. An unmarried, pretty woman living alone? In their eyes, that's not a sign of independence. It's a sign of availability, or worse, of failure. The preacher's wife, a woman whose piety is matched only by her severity, looks you up and down. It is not good for a woman to be alone, she says, her voice layered with judgment. A good woman finds a good husband. It is the Lord's way. The message is clear. Your single status, combined with your face, makes you a moral hazard. You are an anomaly, and this town does not tolerate anomalies. You are a loose thread in their tightly woven social fabric, and they are determined to either weave you in or snip you off. Here's a difficult fringe fact. In many frontier communities, the social pressure on women to marry was immense. A single woman was often seen as a burden on the community, or a source of moral instability. The few jobs available to women teacher, seamstress, laundress were low-paying and offered little security. Marriage was presented not just as a romantic goal, but as a woman's primary duty and only real path to social acceptance and safety. The judgment isn't just social, it's practical. The blacksmith's wife forgets to tell you when the quilting circle is meeting next. The preacher's daughter, who once seemed friendly, now avoids your gaze at church. You are being subtly, methodically, excluded. They are drawing a line in the dust, and you are on the wrong side of it. The most painful part is that you understand their fear. You've seen the way their husbands look at you. You've seen the hunger in their eyes. The women aren't just being cruel, they're being protective. They are guarding their homes, their families, their precarious positions in a world that offers them very little power. Their husbands may own the land and the businesses, but the women own the town's morality, and they will defend it fiercely against any perceived threat. You are that threat. You begin to feel an intense, crushing loneliness. The men see you as an object of desire, the women see you as an object of suspicion. There is no one you can talk to, no one to confide in. You spend your evenings in your small room, the silence broken only by the sound of your own needle-pulling thread. One Sunday, you wear your best dress to church. It's a simple calico, modest and clean, but as you walk in, you feel the familiar wave of scrutiny. The men's eyes linger, the women's eyes narrow. During his sermon, the preacher talks about the temptations of the flesh, about Eve and the apple, about the daughters of Zion who walk with wanton eyes. He never looks at you directly, but you feel the sermon is aimed at your pew like a holy arrow. You feel your face flush with a shame you haven't earned. After the service, as people are milling about outside, the blacksmith's wife approaches you. She's holding a plate of cookies. "You're a seamstress, aren't you?" she asks, her voice deceptively sweet. You nod. "My brother is looking for a wife," she continues. "He has a good claim up north. A bit rough around the edges, but a good, God-fearing man. He needs a wife to make a home for him. I could write to him for you, if you'd like. It's not an offer of help. It's an offer of removal. She's trying to marry you off, to ship you out, to solve the problem of you. She wants you gone, neatly packaged, and delivered to some lonely man in the wilderness. It would restore the town's equilibrium. It would make her feel safe again. You look at her hard, worried eyes, and you see the truth of your situation. You will never be one of them. You will always be the outsider, the beautiful stranger, the source of anxiety. As long as you are here, unmarried and unowned, you are a danger to their peace of mind. You politely decline her offer, and the sweetness in her face evaporates, replaced by a cold finality. You've made your choice. You've refused to be integrated, and you've refused to be removed. And in the silent code of the respectable women of this town, you have just declared yourself an enemy. The loneliness you felt before now feels like a permanent state of exile. You didn't take the saloon girl's offer. The thought of that life, the noise, the smoke, the grasping hands was more than you could bear. But you find yourself watching them now with a new, unsettling curiosity. The soiled doves, the painted ladies, the women who work behind the swinging doors. From the outside, their lives seem a world away from your quiet, lonely existence. They laugh loudly. They wear bright, provocative dresses. They are the vibrant, scandalous heart of the town's nightlife. And for them, beauty is not a burden. It is a tool of the trade, an absolute necessity. The prettier the girl, the more drinks she can sell, the more men will clamour for a dance, the more money she can make in an hour than you make in a week of painstaking needlework. In this brutal frontier economy, their faces are their fortune. You watch Lily, the saloon's star attraction. She moves through the crowded room with a practiced grace, her smile a brilliant, weaponized thing. She can coax a sack of gold dust from a lonely miner with a well-timed laugh and a hand on his arm. She can diffuse a drunken brawl with a witty retort. Her beauty gives her a strange, intoxicating power. Men who would bully and brawl with each other become stammering schoolboys in her presence. They bring her gifts, a gold nugget, a bottle of fine perfume, a stolen feather from a rare bird. They are buying moments of her attention, slivers of a fantasy she is paid to sell. But you start to notice the cage that surrounds this gilded life. Lily's beauty may give her power over the customers, but it makes her the absolute property of the saloon owner, Croft. He watches her with a hawk's intensity. Her dresses are chosen by him. Her earnings are collected by him. Her freedom is an illusion. One night, a wealthy rancher, drunk and emboldened, offers to buy Lily from Croft. Not for a night, but for good. He wants to take her away, set her up in a fancy house in the next town over. He slaps a bag of coins on the bar. The saloon goes quiet. Croft just laughs, a low, ugly sound. He slides the coins back. "She's not for sale," he says, his hand resting on the pistol at his hip. The message is clear. Lily is an asset, and he doesn't liquidate his most valuable ones. Lily, who had been watching with a flicker of something you thought might be hope, lets her smile fall back into place. It's a mask, you realize. Perfect, beautiful, and utterly empty. Here's a grim fringe fact. While some women in the sporting world of the Old West were independent, many were effectively indentured servants. They were often in debt to the saloon or brothel owner for their clothing, board, and fines for infractions. Their beauty, which drew them into the life, became the very thing that trapped them in it. The more desirable they were, the more their owners were unwilling to let them go. You see the danger escalate. For a woman like Lily, a pretty face doesn't just attract admirers, it attracts obsession. Men become possessive of her, even those who have no claim. Fights break out over who gets the next dance with her. A miner who believes she smiled at him too kindly one night follows her, convinced they have a special connection. Croft has to have him thrown out, and the man is later found beaten in an alley. Her beauty also breeds a venomous jealousy among the other girls. They work alongside her, share the same smoky air, but there is a brutal hierarchy. Lily gets the best customers, the finest dresses, the illusion of prestige. The other, plainer girls get the leftovers. You see them watching her with a mixture of awe and raw hatred. They might sabotage her dress, spread a vicious rumor, or try to steal a wealthy patron. In this world, another woman's beauty isn't something to be admired. It's competition. It's a threat to your own survival. One afternoon you see Lily outside the saloon, in the harsh light of day. Without the soft lantern glow and the haze of smoke, she looks different, younger, and so incredibly tired. The vibrant paint on her face looks like a brittle mask, and there are faint bruises on her arm, barely hidden by her sleeve. She catches you looking, and her face hardens into the familiar, defiant smile. But for a second, you saw the person behind the performance, the prisoner in the gilded cage. You realize that her situation and yours are two sides of the same debased coin. Your beauty traps you in a prison of respectability and suspicion. Hers traps her in a prison of performance and possession. You are expected to be a saint. She is expected to be a sinner. But neither of you is allowed to simply be a woman. Your face dictates your role, and the town demands you play it. You think about the offers you've received. The cabin from the miner, the hotel apartment from the speculator. It would have been a life like Lily's, just with a different owner. A cage with only one man holding the key. You shudder. The loneliness of your small room suddenly feels less like a prison and more like a fortress. It is the one place where you are not being appraised, not being valued, not being sold. That evening, the music from the saloon seems to have a different sound. It's not just joyful or chaotic. It's frantic, desperate. You look out your window and see the lanterns glowing, casting long, dancing shadows on the street. You think of Lily inside, smiling her perfect smile, her eyes empty, her bruises hidden by silk. You are on the outside, looking in. She is on the inside, unable to look out. And you wonder, in this dusty, heartless town, who is really the more trapped. Weeks turn into a month, then 2. The sewing work is sporadic, and your savings are dwindling to almost nothing. The widow at the boarding house has started giving you looks that are less pity and more impatience. The pressure is mounting, a slow, crushing weight. It's in this state of quiet desperation that you start reading the advertisements in the newspapers that arrive on the stagecoach. They're tucked away in the back pages, small print notices from men in faraway territories, ranchers, farmers, miners, lonely men seeking a wife, a mail-order bride. The ads are filled with a kind of clumsy, hopeful poetry. Widower with 320 acres and a good well seeks a respectable woman of good character to share his home and his heart. Must be willing to work hard. No triflers, please. Or, homesteader in Montana Territory desires correspondence with a lady of fine morals and pleasant disposition. Object, matrimony. Photograph requested. Back east, the idea is scandalous. But out here, it's a grimly practical solution to a demographic imbalance. There are too many men, not enough women. For a woman like you, with no family, no prospects, and a face that causes more trouble than it's worth, the ads represent a sliver of hope, a chance for a home, for security, for a life where you are a wife, not a curiosity. So, you do it. You spend one of your last coins on a sheet of paper and a stamp. You choose an ad from a man in Oregon. His name is Silas, and his letter, which he had the local postmaster write for him, sounds kind. He has a small farm, he says. He's lonely. He wants a partner. He doesn't ask for a photograph. He asks about what books you've read. This, more than anything, convinces you. You write back. You tell him about yourself, leaving out the part about the stairs and the whispers and the suffocating loneliness of this town. You present yourself as what you hope to be, capable, respectable, ready for a new life. After a few exchanged letters, he sends you a train ticket and a proposal of marriage. Leaving the town is a relief. As the stagecoach pulls away, you don't look back. You feel the weight of 100 gazes lifting from your shoulders. For the first time in months, you feel anonymous. The journey is long and arduous, but it's filled with a nervous, fluttering hope. You're not just traveling to a new place, you're traveling to a new identity. You will be Mrs. Silas Croft, a wife, a respectable woman, no longer the pretty girl defined by others. But the Wild West is a land of mirages, and promises made from 1,000 miles away can dissolve like mist upon arrival. You get to the small, muddy outpost in Oregon and ask for Silas. The man at the train station, a grizzled old man with one eye, squints at you. "Silas," you say. He chews on a piece of straw. He's expecting you, is he? He looks you up and down, that same old familiar appraisal, and a knot of dread tightens in your stomach. He points you toward a dilapidated cabin on the edge of the settlement. As you approach, the man who steps out is not the man you imagined. He is 20 years older than his letters suggested. His eyes are small and hard. His hands are stained with dirt, and he smells of cheap whiskey. This is Silas. He looks at your face, and a slow, greedy smile spreads across his. "Well, I'll be," he says, his voice a gravelly rasp. "The picture didn't do you justice. You never sent a picture." The truth dawns on you, cold and sharp. The man who wrote you those thoughtful letters about books? It wasn't him. It was the postmaster, a man known for his flowery prose, hired to spin a fantasy to lure a woman here. Any woman. And you realize your beauty was the bait in a trap you didn't even see. He hadn't just been looking for a wife. He had been looking for a pretty wife. A prize to show off to the other lonely, hard-bitten men in this forsaken place. He had ordered you like a piece of new tack for his horse, a decorative fixture for his miserable life. The cabin is squalid. A single room, a dirt floor, a bed that is little more than a pile of filthy blankets. There is no bookshelf. There are no books. "You'll learn to like it here," he says, his hand clamping down on your arm. His touch is possessive, the touch of a man who has just taken delivery of a long-awaited purchase. Here is a devastating fringe fact. The mail-order bride system was rife with deception on both sides, but women were far more vulnerable. They often arrived in isolated locations with no money, no allies, and no way to return home. They were completely dependent on the man they had agreed to marry. If he turned out to be cruel, abusive, or simply not the person he claimed to be, they had virtually no recourse. They were trapped. You are trapped. Miles from anyone you know. Legally bound to a man who sees you as property. The hope that carried you all this way shatters, leaving only a cold, terrifying clarity. That night, he shows you off to his neighbours. 2 other rough-looking farmers who come over to drink his whiskey and stare at his new acquisition. They congratulate Silas on his luck. They look at you with a mixture of envy and contempt. You are the pretty thing he managed to buy. You are more isolated now than you ever were in that dusty boomtown. There, at least, there were other people, other buildings, the theoretical possibility of escape. Here, there is only Silas, his suffocating cabin, and an endless expanse of wilderness that feels like the edge of the world. Your face has led you here. It was the unspoken promise in the advertisement. It was the reason Silas's eyes lit up when he saw you. It is the reason he now watches you constantly, his gaze a mixture of pride and paranoia, terrified that someone else will try to take his prized possession away. You spend your days doing back-breaking work on the farm. You cook, you clean, you mend. You do everything a wife is supposed to do. But you are not a partner, you are a servant. And at night, you lie in the dark, listening to his snores, feeling like a ghost haunting someone else's life. You thought marriage would be your salvation, a shield against the dangers of being a beautiful woman alone. Instead, it has become the most perfect cage of all. You endure the life with Silas for months. Each day is a study in quiet desperation. You learn to make yourself small, to speak only when spoken to anticipate his moods like a nervous animal watching the weather. You learn the geography of his temper, the things that will set him off, and the fragile, temporary nature of his good humour. Your beauty, the very thing he desired, is now a source of constant conflict. If another man so much as glances at you when you go into the settlement for supplies, Silas grows sullen and suspicious. He accuses you of flirting, of inviting the attention. He forbids you from speaking to the shopkeeper for more than a minute. Your face, which was once his pride, has become his obsession, a treasure he must guard with a jealous, suffocating vigilance. One evening, his jealousy boils over into violence. An argument over a missing button on his shirt escalates. He grabs you, his fingers digging into your arms like talons. He shoves you against the rough-hewn wall of the cabin. For the first time, you are truly afraid for your life. You manage to break free and run, not just out of the cabin, but away, into the cold, dark night, with nothing but the thin dress on your back. You don't know where you're going. You just run until your lungs burn and your feet are raw. By morning, you stumble back into the small settlement, exhausted, terrified, and bruised. You go to the only person you can think of, the town sheriff. He's a man named Miller. Older, with a weary face and a star pinned crookedly to his vest. He listens to your story in his dusty, cramped office. He listens patiently, his expression unreadable. You show him the bruises on your arms. You tell him you can't go back. You plead with him for help, for protection. When you're finished, he sighs, a long, tired sound. "Ma'am," he says, his voice gentle but firm, "Silas is your husband. The law says you belong with him. A man's home is his castle, and what happens between a husband and wife, well, that's a private matter." You stare at him in disbelief. "He tried to kill me," you whisper. "Now, I'm sure he just has a temper," the sheriff says, avoiding your eyes. "He was probably drinking. You go on back home. I'll have a word with him. Tell him to keep his hands to himself." The crushing realization dawns on you. The law is not on your side. The law is on the side of property owners, of husbands. As a woman, and especially as a wife, you have no legal standing. Your word against his means nothing. The bruises on your arms are not evidence of a crime. They are evidence of a private matter. Here's a stark historical truth. In the 19th century, domestic violence was not widely considered a crime. The concept of marital rape did not exist in the law. A wife was, for all legal intents and purposes, the property of her husband. Lawmen were incredibly reluctant to interfere in domestic disputes, often seeing it as a man's right to discipline his wife. For a woman seeking help, the law was not a shield. It was another locked door. You leave the sheriff's office feeling a coldness that has nothing to do with the weather. You are utterly, completely alone. But as you're walking away, Sheriff Miller calls out to you. "Wait a minute, ma'am." You turn. He steps closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Look, I can't officially do anything, but a woman like you shouldn't be out there with a man like Silas. It ain't right." He glances around to make sure no one is listening. "There's a room I keep at the back of the jailhouse. For witnesses sometimes. It's clean. You could stay there for a few nights. Until you figure things out." A flicker of hope ignites in your chest. Maybe he is a good man. Maybe he does want to help. "Thank you, Sheriff," you say, your voice thick with relief. He smiles, but there's something in his eyes that makes you uneasy. "Of course," he says, "a man's got to protect a lady in distress. Especially a pretty one." And there it is. That word again. Pretty. His offer of protection isn't born of justice. It's born of the same instinct that has plagued you all along. He sees you as a beautiful object in need of a new owner. He is protecting you from Silas, but he is also claiming you for himself. The room at the back of the jail isn't a sanctuary. It's another cage, just one with a different keeper. You spend one night in that small, cold room. The sheriff brings you a plate of food from the local diner. He sits with you while you eat, telling you stories about the town, about his job. He's kind, fatherly. But as the evening wears on, his hand rests on your shoulder a little too long. His compliments about your eyes, your hair, become a little too frequent. He tells you not to worry about Silas. "I'll handle him," he says. "You'll be safe here, with me." You realize with a sickening jolt that you have traded one predator for another. This one wears a badge instead of farmer's overalls, but his motives are the same. He's not a protector. He's an opportunist. Your beauty has not earned you justice. It has simply made you a more desirable prize in a power struggle between two men. That night, you don't sleep. You listen to the sounds of the jailhouse, the distant snores of a drunk in a cell, the creak of the floorboards as the sheriff makes his rounds. You know you cannot stay here. Before dawn, you slip out. You don't take anything. You just walk away from the town, from Silas, from the sheriff. You melt into the grey landscape, a ghost leaving a town of ghosts. You have no money, no destination, and no allies. But for the first time in a very long time, you are not being watched. You are not anyone's property. The law didn't save you. It was just another man with a key. And you've learned a bitter lesson. In a world where your face is your only asset, justice is just the highest bidder. And you can't afford the price. You walk for what feels like days, following the railroad tracks, sleeping in abandoned sheds, and eating whatever you can forage or beg. You eventually find your way to a larger, more established town. A real city, with brick buildings, a proper hotel, and even a small library. Here, you hope, you can finally disappear. You can become one of many, a face in the crowd, no longer a spectacle. You find work as a laundress, a grueling, anonymous job of steam, lie, and other people's grime. You rent a small room in a boarding house for working women. You keep your head down. You speak to no one. You dress in the plainest, darkest clothes you can find. You tie your hair back so severely it makes your scalp ache. You are trying, with every fibre of your being, to erase the very thing that has caused you so much pain, your beauty. You are trying to become invisible. For a while, it works. The work is hard, but it's honest. The anonymity is a balm to your frayed nerves, but you can't erase your face. And even in a larger town, a woman of striking appearance does not go unnoticed for long. The danger this time comes not from lonely miners or lecherous cattle barons, but from a source you never expected. Other women. And their weapon isn't threats or propositions, it's something far more insidious. It's jealousy, dressed up as piety. The first hint of trouble comes from the church quilting circle, which you've cautiously begun to attend, hoping for a sliver of community. The women are polite at first, but you notice the way they watch you when the town's more eligible bachelors, the young doctor, the banker's son, happen to speak to you after the Sunday service. Their smiles tighten, their needles move a little faster. A woman named Mrs. Prentice, the wife of the town's most successful merchant, takes a particular disliking to you. She is a pillar of the community, a woman whose influence is felt everywhere. She is also plain, severe, and deeply resentful of anyone who possesses the one thing she lacks: beauty. She doesn't confront you directly. Her methods are more subtle. She begins to spread rumors. Quiet, poisonous whispers that spread through the town like a slow fever. Did you hear about the new laundress? They say she came from a town out west. Left in a hurry. I wonder why. She keeps to herself, doesn't she? A bit too quiet. Proud, I think. A woman with a past, no doubt. Mr. Prentice said he saw her talking to the young doctor. She has her eye on him, you mark my words. A woman like that is always looking for an opportunity. The rumours are baseless, of course. But they are effective. Soon, the other women in the quilting circle become distant. The landlady of your boarding house starts giving you suspicious looks. You feel the familiar chill of exclusion, but this time it's colder, because it's wielded by the very people you thought might be your allies. Here's a poignant fringe fact. The social world of 19th century women, especially in towns striving for respectability, was intensely competitive and often cruel. A woman's reputation was her most valuable asset, and it was policed not just by men but by other women. Beauty could be seen as an unfair advantage, a form of cheating in the high-stakes game of securing a good husband and a stable social position. A beautiful newcomer was often treated with deep suspicion, her every action scrutinized for signs of moral laxity. The situation comes to a head when the church decides to hire a new schoolteacher. You apply for the position. You're educated. You love books. It would be a chance to finally have a life of the mind, to be valued for something other than your face. You are, by all accounts, the most qualified candidate. But Mrs. Prentice is on the hiring committee. During your interview, she doesn't ask about your teaching philosophy or your knowledge of literature. She asks about your family. She asks why you travel alone. She asks if you think it's seemly for an unmarried woman of your appearance to be in charge of impressionable children. Her questions are couched in the language of moral concern, but her intent is clear. She is painting you as a temptress, a Jezebel, a danger to the town's moral fabric. Your beauty, in her eyes, is proof of your untrustworthiness. You don't get the job. It goes to a plainer, less qualified woman, a cousin of Mrs. Prentice. The defeat is crushing, not because you wanted the job so badly, but because of the injustice of it. You have done everything right. You have worked hard, lived quietly, and sought a respectable life. And you have been judged and found wanting, not for any action you've taken, but for the shape of your face. You have been punished for a crime you didn't commit. and your judge, jury, and executioner was another woman. The venom of the virtuous, you realize, can be more deadly than any outlaw's bullet. A man's desire is a straightforward threat. You can see it, you can avoid it. But a woman's jealousy is a quiet poison. It works in the shadows, through whispers and insinuations, until your reputation is in tatters and you are left completely isolated. You are no longer just an outsider. You are a pariah. The women of the town have closed ranks against you. They see you as a threat to their stability, a symbol of the dangerous, chaotic passions that they have so carefully suppressed in their own lives and in their town. Your face is a mirror reflecting their own insecurities, and they are desperate to shatter it. You continue your work as a laundress, your hands raw from the lie, your heart heavy with a loneliness that is now absolute. You have escaped the physical cage of Silas, only to find yourself in an invisible one, built of gossip and fear. And you start to wonder if there is any place in this world where your face will not be a curse. Just when you think you've reached the lowest point, when the loneliness and social exile feel like a permanent shroud, your life takes another violent turn. The world of the Wild West, you are learning, always has another layer of danger waiting beneath the surface. It begins with a name whispered in hushed, fearful tones throughout the town: Jedediah Kane. He's an outlaw, the leader of a small, vicious gang that's been terrorizing the territory for months. They rob stagecoaches, raid isolated homesteads, and have a reputation for a particular kind of cruelty that leaves even hardened lawmen pale. Kane is not a romantic figure. He is a predator, a man who takes what he wants simply because he can. And one day, he rides into town. Not for a robbery, but for supplies. He and his men swagger down the main street, their spurs ringing on the boardwalk, their eyes cold and empty. The town holds its breath. The sheriff is conveniently out on patrol. The townsfolk lock their doors and pray the trouble will pass. You are at the mercantile, buying flour, your head down, trying to be invisible as always. But as Kane and his men enter, a hush falls over the store. And you feel it again, that familiar heavy gaze. But this one is different. It's not the curious stare of a lonely miner or the possessive glare of a cattle baron. This is the look of a wolf that has just spotted its prey. It's Jedediah Kane. He is looking directly at you. He's not a handsome man. His face is a roadmap of scars and bad decisions. But he has a charismatic swagger, a confidence born of pure, unchecked power. He walks over to you, his men flanking him, grinning. "Well now," Kane says, his voice a low drawl. "What have we here?" A desert rose blooming in all this dust. He circles you slowly, like an appraiser examining a prize horse. The other people in the store freeze, terrified to move, to speak, to even breathe. You stand your ground, your heart a cold stone in your chest. You do not speak. You do not look at him. She's a quiet one of his men snickers. "The quiet ones are always the most interesting," Kane replies, his eyes never leaving your face. He reaches out and touches a stray strand of your hair. You flinch, but you don't pull away. You know that any sudden movement, any sign of defiance, could be fatal. He smiles. "I'll be back for you, Rose," he whispers, his breath smelling of whiskey and dust. Then, as quickly as they arrived, he and his men are gone, leaving a trail of fear and silence in their wake. The town breathes again. But for you, the air has become thick with a new, more terrifying dread. You have been noticed. You have been claimed. Not by a farmer or a sheriff, but by a man who lives outside all laws, all rules, all semblance of society. From that day on, you live in a state of constant, low-grade terror. You know he will come back. It's not a question of if, but when. Your beauty, which has already been a source of so much trouble, has now attracted the most dangerous kind of attention possible. To a man like Kane, you are not a person, you are the ultimate prize. Taking you would be the ultimate act of defiance against the civilized world he despises. You are a symbol of everything he cannot have through legitimate means, and so he will take you by force. A quirky and deeply disturbing historical detail. Outlaw gangs in the West were known to kidnap women, sometimes for ransom, but often to be kept as outlaw queens or camp followers. These women lived a brutal, precarious existence, subject to the whims of violent men and constantly on the move. For a woman to be taken by an outlaw gang was often considered a fate worse than death. She was not only physically captive, but also socially ruined forever. The town that once shunned you now looks at you with a mixture of fear and a strange, morbid pity. You are marked. You are Cain's intended victim. And in a way, your danger makes them feel safer. As long as he is focused on you, he is not focused on them. You have become a lightning rod for the town's fear. You contemplate running again, but where would you go? Cain's reach is long, and you are a woman alone with no resources. The sheriff offers you no protection. In fact, he seems to be avoiding you, as if your bad luck is contagious. The waiting is a form of torture. Every night, you lie awake, listening for the sound of hoofbeats. Every shadow seems to hold a threat. Your small room, once a sanctuary, now feels like a trap. The end comes on a moonless night. You are woken not by a sound, but by a presence. The door to your room splinters open. 2 of Cain's men stand there, their faces masked by bandanas. Before you can scream, a rough hand clamps over your mouth. You are dragged from your bed, a sack thrown over your head, and carried out into the night. You don't fight. You know it's useless. The town is silent. No one comes to help. No lights come on in the windows. They are all listening, hiding, relieved that the trouble has finally come and gone, and that you were the one to pay the price. You are thrown over a saddle like a sack of flour. The horse gallops away from the town, away from everything you know, carrying you deeper into the lawless heart of the wilderness. The last thing you hear is the faint, triumphant laughter of Jedediah Cain, a man who has just collected his prize. Your beauty has not just been a burden, it has been your undoing. It has led you from the quiet judgment of a small town to the absolute, brutal possession of an outlaw. You are no longer just an object of desire. You are spoils of war, in a battle you never even knew you were fighting. You spend weeks, maybe months, with Cain's gang. Time blurs into a haze of dusty campsites, long rides under a brutal sun, and nights spent listening to the crude laughter of men who see you as little more than a mascot for their cruelty. You are Cain's property. He makes this clear to you and to his men. You eat when he says you can eat. You sleep where he tells you to sleep. Your life is no longer your own. But something is happening inside you. The fear, which was once a sharp, paralyzing thing, is slowly hardening into something else. It's cold, it's quiet, and it's heavy. It's the kind of resolve that only comes when you have absolutely nothing left to lose. Your beauty, the curse that has defined your life, is now meaningless. Out here, in the dirt and the grit, it offers no protection, no advantage. It is just a fact, like the color of the sky or the hardness of the ground. And in that realization, you find a strange, unexpected freedom. You are no longer trying to be respectable. You are no longer trying to be invisible. You are simply trying to survive. You begin to watch, to learn. You learn the rhythms of the gang, the hierarchies, the weaknesses. You learn which man is lazy, which one is superstitious, which one drinks too much. You learn to read the landscape, to identify edible plants, to find water. You learn how to clean a gun, how to load it. Cain thinks it's amusing. He lets you practice, laughing as you struggle with the recoil. He doesn't see the look in your eyes. He doesn't see the cold calculation. He still sees the pretty prize he captured. He is a man blinded by his own arrogance. You develop an armor that no one can see. It's not made of steel, but of silence, of observation, of a patient, simmering rage. You learn to make your face a blank mask, your voice devoid of emotion. You obey, but you are not subservient. You are waiting. Fringe fact: there are several accounts from the Old West of women who were captured by outlaws or Native American tribes, and through sheer force of will and intelligence, not only survived, but eventually earned a position of respect, or even power within the group. Figures like Cynthia Ann Parker or Olive Oatman, while their stories are tragic, demonstrate an incredible capacity for adaptation and resilience. Survival often required shedding one identity and forging a new one in the crucible of captivity. Your opportunity comes during a botched payroll robbery. The gang is pursued by a posse, and the chase is long and desperate. Men are injured, tempers fray. In the chaos of a nighttime camp, with Cain drunk and distracted, you make your move. You don't run. Running is what they would expect. Instead, you do something far more dangerous. You walk over to the fire where Cain is arguing with his second-in-command. You are holding the small Derringer pistol that you managed to steal from a dead posse member's saddlebag days ago. You had kept it hidden, waiting for this moment. You shoot Jedediah Cain. You don't aim for his heart, you aim for his leg. The shot echoes through the canyon. He screams, a sound of surprise more than pain, and collapses. His men stare at you, stunned into silence. "He's getting sloppy," you say, your voice calm and even. "He almost got us all killed today. He's a liability." You are not the frightened girl they kidnapped. You are someone else now. Someone they have never seen before. Someone who understands their world, their language of violence and opportunity. In the power vacuum that follows, a choice is made. They don't kill you. They don't abandon you. They are outlaws, men who respect strength above all else. And you have just shown them a strength they never imagined you possessed. You do not become their leader, but you are no longer their prisoner. You become something else, something new, an equal, a survivor. You have taken the very thing that was meant to be your curse, the fact that men underestimated you because of your face, and you have turned it into your most powerful weapon. Your journey is far from over. The world is still a dangerous, unforgiving place, but you are no longer a victim of it. You have shed the identity that was forced upon you, the pretty girl, the respectable woman, the outlaw's prize. You have been forged in the fire of the wilderness, and you have emerged as something harder, sharper, and freer than you ever thought possible. You ride with them, not as a captive, but as a partner. You are still beautiful, but it is the last thing anyone notices about you. They see the coldness in your eyes, the steadiness of your hand, the hardness of your silence. Your face is still your own, but you have finally learned to wear it like armor. You have survived not by becoming invisible, but by becoming unforgettable, for an entirely different reason. You are no longer the desert rose. You are the thorn. Years pass. The world changes. The West is slowly being tamed, fenced in and civilized. The age of the outlaw is fading, replaced by the age of the railroad, the telegraph, and the law. The wild, open spaces are shrinking, and the life you have been living becomes untenable. You leave the gang. There is no dramatic farewell. You simply ride away one morning, heading not east or west, but toward a future you will have to invent for yourself. You have some money, a horse, and a set of skills that are not fit for polite society. You find a small, quiet town in the mountains, a place that time seems to have forgotten. You buy a small plot of land, build a cabin. You give a new name, a simple one. You become a woman who keeps to herself, who raises a few chickens, who is known for her sharp eye and her reluctance to speak about the past. The townspeople are curious about you, of course, but you are no longer the frightened girl who flinches under their gaze. You have a stillness about you now, a self-possession that discourages questions. Your beauty is still there, but it's weathered, etched with the lines of hardship and memory. It is no longer a soft, inviting thing. It is a testament to survival. Sometimes, when you look in the mirror, you see the ghosts of all the women you were forced to be. The hopeful girl stepping off the stagecoach, the lonely seamstress in her tiny room, the terrified mail-order bride, the outlaw's captive. They are all there, in the shadows behind your eyes. You have scars that no one can see. The memory of hunger, of fear, of a loneliness so profound it felt like a physical illness. The knowledge of how quickly civilization can peel away, revealing the raw, brutal instincts beneath. The understanding that the line between a respectable man and a predator is often terrifyingly thin. But you also carry the lessons. You learn that strength is not about noise and bluster, but about patience and observation. You learn that survival is not about avoiding danger, but about meeting it on your own terms. You learn that your greatest weakness, the way the world saw you, could be turned into your greatest strength. You live a quiet life. You find a strange, hard-won peace in the solitude of the mountains. You are no longer defined by the gaze of others. You are defined by the work of your own hands, by the solidity of the cabin you built, by the silence you have earned. One day, a young traveller passes through, a woman travelling alone, much like you once were. She has that same look in her eyes, a mixture of hope and fear, and she has a face that makes people stop and stare. You see the men in the small town turn to watch her, their expressions a familiar mixture of curiosity and speculation. You see her flinch, pull her bonnet lower, and hurry on her way. That evening you find her at the edge of your property, looking lost. You don't offer her pity, you don't offer her warnings. You simply invite her in for a hot meal. As you sit by the fire, you don't tell her your story. But you talk to her. You ask her where she is going, what she is hoping for. You listen. You treat her not as a pretty face, but as a person. And in her grateful, surprised eyes, you see a reflection of your own long, hard journey. You have not escaped the curse of your face, but you have learned to live with it. You have learned that the most dangerous traps are the ones we allow others to build around us. And the only true freedom is the one we claim for ourselves, in the quiet moments when we look in the mirror and see not the object of someone else's story, but the author of our own. Your face may have been the beginning of your story, the thing that set you on a path of danger and despair, but it was not the end. The end is this: a quiet cabin, a warm fire, and the hard-earned wisdom that a woman's worth is not measured by the beauty of her face, but by the strength of her will to survive. And as you drift now into sleep, let the fire burn low. The ghosts of the past are quiet tonight. The West is slowly growing old, and so are you. But you are here. You are whole. You are free. And that, in a world that tried so hard to own you, is the only victory that matters. Good night.